doing, Adam?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good, man. What about you?
Yeah, it was a late night yesterday watching the UFC 296 from Las Vegas, Nevada, buddy. So it was an
Oh
exciting,
yeah, man.
a lot of expectations for that fight card.
Yeah, it's a lot of expectations and yeah, I mean it kind of delivered if you think about it. I mean it was interesting. It was interesting, let's put it this way. Um
So what are the
which
three fights we're going to talk about today?
Yeah, I mean I watched like Tony Ferguson against Paddy Pimblett, right? I mean, that was like I was really, really waiting for that fight. I had like high expectations about that fight because I kind of didn't know like how it's gonna play out, right? Because I mean, Paddy is this young guy. I don't know what is he like 3-0 in the UFC before, and yeah, just general like a pretty skilled guy, but like not top 10, not top 15 yet. And like he's facing a veteran. He was facing a veteran in Tony Ferguson, who's like obviously one of the best to ever do it in the lightweight division, but now on a 6-fight losing streak and 39 years old, right? But he trained with David Goggins before the fight, and that's what made it interesting. Like kind of, you know, how it's gonna play out mentally for him. Is it gonna be any different than before? And yeah, I mean, unfortunately, it wasn't really any different. But how did you see the fight? Like, what do you think about the whole fight?
So Paddy Pimblett and Tony Ferguson was the lightweight fight, right? There was no championships on the belt, right?
Yeah, it was just like it was not even in the top 15, so it was just like a normal lightweight bout. Yeah.
And Paddy Pimblett, he's fighting out of where is he from? England
England. Yeah, he's English. Yeah.
or I don't know, like Newcastle or something? Do you know where he's from?
No, I think he's from Liverpool.
Liverpool. Yeah,
Yeah,
that sounds right.
yeah,
Yeah, that
yeah.
sounds
That's why
right.
he has a fucking accent that like you cannot fucking understand like half the things the guy is saying. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite significant the accent. So yeah. All right. So they're not what is Tony ranked as? What's the ranking of those two fighters?
I think they're all ranked, both of them now. Like they're all ranked because yeah, I mean Tony was obviously ranked very, very high before he fought Justin Gaethje. I think he was like number one or number two in the lightweight division. But then he lost to Gaethje, then he lost to Charles Oliveira, then Dariush, and then even after that he lost a couple of fights. I think even his last fight against Bobby Green, he was already not ranked, and he lost
Okay.
that one as well. So he's not ranked now. And Paddy, he hasn't reached the rankings yet, so he's just on the climb right now.
Yeah, you know what? The fight starts off a little bit slow. Paddy was kind of pushed up against the fence. Tony was taking the center of the octagon. He was putting pressure on it. But when it comes down to it, I think you can also see the third round that Paddy was kind of gassed out a little bit, So
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
was
Paddy was
probably
gassed out.
so he was probably pacing himself, in order to not be gassed out earlier, because that can be a catastrophical consequence if you're gassed out too early. But what
Yeah.
I thought was kind of cool is that uh, Ferguson, he had something that worked. Did you notice that?
What do you mean? Which aspect of Ferguson's game?
Did you notice, like looking back at the fight, did you notice that he had success doing something?
I mean, not really, to be honest, other than his cardio was great. In the third, like Paddy was gassed out and he still had his gas tank. But other than that, no, I didn't see like anything too impressive from him. What what i-
Yeah.
what is it that what is it that you're saying?
Well, I noticed his left jab.
Always left jab.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like yeah, he threw like a couple of jabs, right? But I mean, it's like he didn't bring him the success that he would need, because he couldn't really capitalize on that, right?
Why do you say that?
I mean, because he lost the fight like 30-27.
So how many jabs do you got to do until it's successful?
I mean, it's not the jab most of the time, right? I mean, you gotta combine it with something.
But There's no textbook
Also, you mean
successful.
like just his left jab, like he did it right, but he didn't follow it up with like off. Okay, no, I got that now. I was kind of probably misunderstanding what you said in the beginning. I mean, yeah, and what I was like really impressed about Tony Ferguson, it was his cardio and his heart, right? I mean, because when he got knocked down in the end of the first, and then how he survived that, and how he just fought through it, but he always had this. I mean, he was always
So
in
that
trouble
doesn't
last.
impress me. That's what we would expect from him, right? And that's what you expect from a guy who's been fighting his whole life just to never give up, If he just gave up, it's like, what the hell happened here, right? So that's not impressive. What I thought with this build up when he's training with David Goggins and all this kind of stuff, it's cool, it's great, but you're not doing a triathlon, you're not doing mountain climbing, you're not starting as an entrepreneur trying to work 24 hours a day. So why do you do Goggins? Okay, he's always had a kind of good stamina, so I don't get it. What
Mhm.
I would love to see in this kind of retirement fights, and it's always easy to say when you're looking back at the situation, but I would love to see a good strategic game plan, how to break down Paddy Pimblett.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I would have loved to see something like that, but I mean, at the same time, if you think about it, Tony kind of never had a game plan. Like even when he was successful, right? When he TKO'd like Cowboy Cerrone, and then he also TKO'd Anthony Pettis, right? He submitted like Kevin Lee, like all these big name fighters, and even on those fights, he was kind of always very unorthodox, very just very different from other fighters, right?
And after like 6, 7, 8 losing strike, you think that's a recipe of success? Not to have a game plan?
I think no. I mean, obviously not. But I mean, I think Tony, even if he has a game plan now, it's not gonna really work out, because yeah, I mean, like Paddy was taking him down, right? And he, how can you stop that, right? I mean, unless you have like the real takedown defense skills to stop those takedowns, then you
Was
know.
it a stand-up fight or was it a ground game fight?
I mean, second and third, no, like second and third was most of the time in the ground because Paddy just kept taking him down.
So where were the damages absorbed? Standing or on the ground?
To be honest, I don't know where was it.
He rocked him standing up. That's where he did the damage with Tony. Paddy
Uh-huh.
hit him, especially in the first round. That's where the damage had. So this is a stand-up fight. This was not a technical grappling fight. There was no cool fucking submissions. There were no cool transitions. He had like an awkward knee to the throat when he's laying on his back, but that didn't impress me. So when it comes down to it, this was a stand-up fight. If you want a strategy for a stand-up fight, the first thing you will work on is making sure that you are able to check the low kicks and that you're able
Yeah.
to control the distance with the jab. That's ABC, man. If you're not able to do that, at this level, then you know what? Then it was certainly his retirement fight. And
Hmm.
when it comes down to it, we're gonna see probably Tony Ferguson in bare knuckle boxing or something like this now, just like going downward spiral. Yeah.
I really wouldn't like to see that. I mean, and I'm saying, I mean, I fucking love Tony as a fighter, right? But just him like taking more damage, and in bare knuckle boxing, or any kind of boxing, you take a lot of damage, especially to the head. So, like I really would hate to see that, man. Yeah, I mean, if I was Tony Ferguson, I would probably just do some grappling fights, maybe, because then there is no damage, right? I mean, there is like risk of injury, but you don't get like
But
any
then
more
you're
brain damage.
talking as if it was like a smart strategy, and he just displayed that he doesn't have that mentality. He's working with like triathlons, athlete, and for a MMA fight,
Yeah.
Paddy against the guy who's 11 years younger than him, and he's coming off a lot of these losing streak, and then he's gonna fight him. How? Stick to the jab. And I'm a little bit disappointed about his corner of Tony Ferguson not telling him that because you know what? Paddy was not able to kind of connect properly when he was jabbing. He's like it was
Uh-huh.
awkward, the point of that is like there's no textbook example that says how many jabs you should do in order to set up your next move, or how many jabs you need to do in order for the opponent to start trying a different approach, right? But the consequence is that your opponent will try a different approach if he is always met by the jab to the face constantly. Like, Jesus Christ, I got to change my game plan. And once you get that mentality inserted in your opponent's head, oh, I got to change because this is not working. Then you got him thinking. Then your plan is working. Then you got to follow up with stuff, all right? Then you can be Tony Ferguson. Then you can be unpredictable. Then you can be like throwing elbows from the body and up, you know. But I'm disappointed in Tony Ferguson's corner, where he has no need for David Goggins in the corner now. He has heart, he has stamina, he has everything. He needs a strategic game plan, specific instructions on how to try to break down or get like an entrance of cracking the guard of Paddy Pimblett, and that wasn't happening. So it ended up it ended up with a what was it, not split decision, but it was a
like a 30-27, like a unanimous decision.
unanimous decision. Yeah, that's the
No, I
word.
mean, man, like I agree with you. I think, he probably should have taken a longer layoff, right? I mean, because his last fight against Bobby Green, when was it, like a couple of months back only? And
He
I
should
think
have
this was his
retired. That's what he should have
third
done.
or fourth fight in this year, you know, and then he could have taken, let's say, a year off or 1.5 year off, change training camps, you know, really adjust a different kind of fighting style, you know, with different trainers and stuff. Maybe he could have been more successful with a longer layoff. I mean, you know, you can never know. I mean, he's pretty much done after the just engaged.
Statistics say the longer layoff, the more ring rust you will have. So that's not a good idea in general. A good fighter is a fighter who's constantly in the gym, constantly fighting, constantly testing himself, being in the motion of the fight world. If you're laying off, you get distracted, you get these negative thoughts, you get these kind of insecurities, and you're not the person you have been until that time. And you know, a lot of these fighters, what you don't hear people talking about is like, if you're staying true to a game, this MMA world is like a self-development tool. It's an ability, and it's an arena where you can practice and improve yourself as a person, physically, mentally, emotionally, everything, right? So that means if you're doing that, you're just staying so completely honest towards yourself, because you're being checked at every session at the gym, every fight that you have in the arena, you're being checked. So it's such an honest way of living, because if you see that you're trying to lie to yourself, you will be checked in the arena or in the gym. And then you're like, oh shit, I got to change that. I got to change that. Once we get older, we don't do that anymore. We start lying to ourselves. I don't need to do that. I do that. And at the end of the day, you're just borrowing time from your body, from the momentum that you have to try to improve yourself. And if you're taking your time off from that kind of mentality, there's no way coming back from them. That's what I say, like, if fighting is the young man's game. Not necessarily because you have to be 28 years old or 35 or whatever, right? But the point is, it's a state of mind that you're not able to obtain for a longer period of your career. See Conor McGregor, see Jose Aldo, they're able to have like a period of their life where they are the GOAT, where they are the best one to ever do it. And then they will be replaced. Every fight is judged by this law. There's no coming around that. So that's what I'm saying. Now I'm kind of disappointed that like his crew was not able to tell him better specific instructions. But at the end of the day, what's made you strong is also what becomes your weakness, right? So the improvisation, the kind of no game plan, just being in the fight, this kind of took Tony Ferguson a long way, but that it took him as long as he could. Now you see that the end of the road for him.
Yeah, you know, it was a very good thought process that you just went through, and yeah, I mean, you know, it's you got some really good points there. Why I said like the longer layoff could probably work out for Tony is because he was on a 6-fight losing streak, right? So it's like I can imagine like where his confidence must be right now. You know, it must not be in a good place. You know, because I mean, you just lost fucking 6 fights, right? And you know that's why I said that maybe a longer layoff combined with changing the training camp, you know, it could work out better. I'm not saying that he would win this fight against Paddy Pimblett if he did that, but I'm just saying that he would have more chance, I think, if he took a year off, changed the training camps, you know, like adopt a different strategy, like kind of what Usman did. Like when Usman, I think Usman fought when he fought Gilbert Burns, you know, he adopted like kind of a different strategy in a different training camp. That's when he changed like training camps. So, you know, it worked out very good for Usman. So but obviously it's not the same situation because he was still in his prime, you know, and not taking so much damage like Tony Ferguson. And yeah, it's overall it's a different story. But you
No,
know, I
it's a
guess
good perspective to have, and I think there's no rule without any exception. There's always going to be somebody. Oh, change this one, have a longer layoff, relax a little bit before you're returning. But in this case, I think this this was not his fight to win, and
yeah,
if he was in the mode of trying to actually win, he needs to like break it down. What I need to do, what are Paddy Pimblett's strengths? Well, like how can we break? What would be a great game plan for 3 rounds of 5 minutes to kind of break it down? He doesn't. He didn't have it. He started with a jab. It was on to something because it kind of stopped them, or at least prevented Paddy Pimblett from getting momentum on his punches. It was like
yeah.
he got stopped and it was not able to continue with full momentum. So even just that, making him unsure of that, and then follow up with something unpredictable and change it up and flip it and kind of just maul him. But then again, it's a young man's game, and unfortunately, I think this is the end of the road, or should be the end of the road
Yeah,
of Tony
should be
Ferguson.
most definitely. Yeah, I mean, this is what I see about Tony Ferguson, right? That he's got like one of the fucking strongest mind in the UFC, right?
Yeah,
He's mentally just insanely strong, you know. But the thing is that his body, it looks like that his body just cannot take it anymore. You know, this high level stress, you know, this high level performance, like he just got old, unfortunately, you know, and because before the Justin Gaethje fight, I mean, he looked like almost unbeatable, and then he lost that fight, and then he kind of just went on a big decline since then. So it
it's
just looks
hard. It's
like that. Yeah,
hard to kind of.
unfortunately,
It's always hard, even on a personal level, for us as commentators. It's hard for us to eat kind of rejections. If you're trying to do something and it doesn't work out, and you don't get that kind of success that you wanted, it's hard to get that rejection. But in this world, the consequence is so brutal. You cannot have 2, 3, 4 losing streak. It's a sign of the okay, you had your run. You had your
yeah.
run. You know.
Yeah. Unless like let's say, you know, if you have a 3, 4 fight losing streak, but against like very high level competition, and then you drop down in competition and you start to win again. I think the same thing happened to Andrei Arlovski, right? So that's a different story, right? But I mean, unfortunately for Tony, like he's losing against lesser competition as well now, you know. So it's like it's definitely not the case for him. So yeah, I mean, unfortunately, it looks like that his time is just over, you know, because now he's not losing against like top 10 fighters, but he's losing against, you know, unranked guys.
Yeah. All right. So when we're talking about these things, let's jump over to the welterweight division. That was a title fight and a big, huge build up. So the welterweight fight was between Leon Edwards and Colby Covington, right?
Yeah, man.
Leon, he got really offended in the press conference where Colby was talking shit about his deceased father, and he
Yeah.
just threw a bottle of water in his face. And it was like everybody is agreeing about that being a cheap shot. What do you think about that?
Yeah, man, absolutely. You know, I think the same thing. You know, there's like a certain line which you cannot cross. You know, I mean, I believe, you know, it's as long as you're insulting your opponent, talking trash, like all these things are fine, right? But I mean, there are certain lines that you just shouldn't cross, right? I mean, you know, talking about like someone's family, you know, talking about like religion and all these things. I mean, I think it's certain lines that you cannot cross. So yeah, I mean, I think Colby absolutely crossed that line, And, you know, I think he probably did it on purpose, though, you know, because Conor McGregor used to do it very great, you know, just kind of getting into the opponent's mind and kind of making them not follow the game plan with this because they get like too emotional. So if Leon Edwards fall for that, you know, then Colby could take this fight. But I mean, he was professional, you know, and he didn't get emotional in the fight, and yeah, that's why he managed to win. What do you think about the actual fight? Was there anything that surprised you?
Yeah, that's why I mentioned this kind of pre-press conference situation, because that set up a lot of expectations for me from the fight. Like, how will he react emotional to the stuff? Will he try to punish him? Will he overreach? Will he try just to physically dominate him? You know?
Yeah,
And it was a snooze fest. It was a snooze fest for a long time. It was a standoff. The crowd was starting booing them a little bit in the middle of there. And I think like maybe the third round there were some low kicks that like I was like, wow, okay, that was proper good kicks from Leon Edwards, right? Even though he delivered low kicks earlier, but like okay. And then in the fifth round there was like a triangle attempt from Leon. It was almost like, wow, dude, does he
yeah,
have it? Like, does he,
yeah.
and
That
then
was that
it
was
slipped
pretty
out, right?
impressive. That was pretty impressive, man.
And then the fight ends up with a unanimous decision where Leon Edwards wins. But like we talked about before earlier fights, if you're on the ground being grounded and pounded by a guy on top when the bell rings, then it's like it doesn't feel like a dominant. It was very tactical. It was very clinical. I would love to see him punishing Colby more just because of his behavior. Colby's smiling, pretending that he has won the fight, and he doesn't put him in respect in any short form that he should have done. I was expecting more from Leon to kind of like just like hurt him, like disrespect him, not just showing the finger, but like punishing him. And I didn't see
Yeah.
that in the ring.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I wasn't surprised about Leon's performance, to be honest, because I mean he's never been like a great finisher, you know. I mean he finished Usman, but other than that, like most of his wins are by decision. So I mean, I was kind of impressed by his striking, you know, how he kind of picked Colby apart on the feet, right? He used like extremely precise kicks and punches. But yeah, especially the leg kicks were like very great. But what I was very surprised is like Colby Covington's game plan, right? Because I mean, the way he came out in the first round and the second round, like kind of just backpedaling, you know, letting like Leon dictate the pace and kind of just not even going for the takedown, getting picked apart on the feet. You know, I was like, what the fuck is this? You know, like this is like what kind of game plan is this? You know, that he attempted like the first takedown, I think, in the third round when he took
Yeah.
Leon down, and then it wasn't like really successful anyway. But yeah, I mean, I was very surprised. Like, why is he not pushing the pace from the very beginning? You know, like he did against Usman or he did against like Jorge Masvidal the last fight. You know, I was very surprised by his strategy because I think if he fought in this fight, if he fought like he fought against Masvidal, you know, he could have reached like bigger success.
Yeah. Yeah. So zooming out, looking at the big picture, good win for like just like another win for Leon Edwards, but not an impressive win. He was able to control the pace. It was a fight just adapted to Leon Edwards' style, so he was able to kind of control the fight in his favor. But it was not like, wow, that was an amazing fight and fantastic performance. Leon Edwards, he's sharp. He's on point. He is where he needs to be. I was just hoping to see more of a fight.
Yeah, yeah. You mean it was like too much of a technical, like a kickboxing match for you, right?
Yeah, it was clinical. It was like there was
Yeah, yeah.
no soul or passion or wow moments or anything. And it's kind of rude for me to kind of expect that because both of these athletes are really high level. So it's hard. It's hard to kind of see two professionals in their profession to kind of um, if it was basketball players, to see them out dunk each other. They will be very close to each other, both of them, so
Yeah.
you will not have the one who's dominating the other. But then again, it's the UFC. It's
Yeah,
the
I mean, but at the same
circus.
time, it depends, I think, what kind of fighters you're watching. Because, for example, Leon Edwards, right? I mean, most of his fights are ending in decisions, so based on the odds, we can kind of expect that, it's gonna end in a decision and not in a finish. But if you look at someone like fucking Alex Pereira, right? Or Francis Ngannou, then it's like, you can almost be 100% sure that it's not gonna end in a decision. Like in Alex Pereira fight, it's most likely gonna be a knockout. So I think it depends on the fighter as well. Like with a higher finish rate, someone can get, like someone can deliver more exciting fights, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah, I think maybe it's like a professional way of handling it, but because I get emotional thinking about the disrespect that Colby was doing. But looking out and just zooming out to the big picture and doesn't think about it. The name of the game is to get inside your opponent's head and kind of disrupt his behavior and make him question himself, like we talked about the first fight today, right? We're able to use that jab. If Tony Ferguson was able to use that jab in order to make Paddy Pimblett kind of doubt himself just for a split second, just to put him on his back of his feet. And then if that's done by trash talk, if that's done by disrespect, if that's done by a strategic, physical, smart fighting game plan, that's how you win the fight, right?
Yeah.
And so it was smart of Colby Covington, and he turns out to have a much better strategic approach than most people. Put in consideration, it's almost 2 years since his last fight. So he should
Yeah.
also be like full of ring rust and not be able to perform. But I was not disappointed in Colby's behavior or performance.
What about his game plan? Like, do you think that he used like the right game plan, like even in the first and second round?
I would love, this is like ifs and buts and shoulda, coulda, woulda. But when it comes down to it, I would see him starting to execute his game plan a little bit earlier.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, that's the same thing. Absolutely, like that's the same thing for me. Yeah, that's what I thought. Like, why he didn't fight like this from the beginning. Like he started to fight in the third round. He should have. I believe he should have done that from the very beginning. And
I
it
don't
could
think in
have
the
been a different
first.
fight.
I don't think in the first because in the first round, everybody's getting like, what the hell is Colby doing? Why is he not engaging? Why is he not trying for any takedowns?
Yeah, you got
And
a good
even
point
even
there. Yeah,
Leon was respecting the situation so much that he didn't stress it. He was staying
yeah,
true. But he was probably expecting more takedown tries from Colby, right? And then people start like, what is he doing? What is his game plan? He's the challenger. He needs to engage more, right? And then they're circulating. The minutes just fly by. 5 minutes just fly by, man. And then when you're fighting in this level, it's you don't even have time to think. So the small impressions that you get when you're fighting, I think that it can create some doubt. Like, what is he doing? And then you start thinking about him, your opponent, instead of thinking about like, let's get this one. Oh, I see he moves there. I want to do this.
yeah, yeah. I think
So
you got a
I
point
think
there.
that was
Yeah,
yeah, sorry. What I want to say is like, I think that was a great idea. Maybe it should be done the first round and in the beginning of the second round, and then start doing your game plan because you got
yeah,
to like a 5 round, 5 minute championship bout. That takes energy, buddy. That takes energy. So you got to pace yourself also. So doing that, he was able to keep his stamina longer. He was able to finish on top when the bell rings. He's finishing on top. That was not a good look for Leon.
yeah, yeah, for
And
sure,
and,
for
and
sure.
he's displayed stamina. He displayed technical abilities. He was kind of in there, like testing him sometimes. It wasn't like really kind of putting him in danger. But it was like,
Yeah.
oh, what if? What? Oh, okay. If he had like 2, 3 more rounds of this, what would happen then?
Yeah, I mean, if it was like a 10-round fight, then it would be probably Colby, right? Because he would just tire him out and eventually just wear him down from the top and everything. But I mean, he kind of messed it up with this game plan. Like, as I agree with what you said, like probably should have done this, like he started it good, in the first round, but then in the second round, sometime he should have changed it, and just start grinding him with the fucking wrestling and just putting a lot of pace on him. So yeah, I mean,
Stop
in
picking your
that case,
nose
it
when we're
could
doing
have
a
been a
podcast,
different fight.
buddy.
Sorry.
Stop picking your nose when we're doing a podcast.
Yeah, we'll cut this part out, right? Yeah. Like the screen's just gonna go blank. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but I
No, but
mean, like back to the topic. I mean, I was also pretty impressed by Leon's takedown defense. I think he had a great takedown defense. Only thing is, I think he messed up in the fight is that he was willingly, exchanging in these wrestling exchanges, right? So I think he shouldn't have done that. Like he shouldn't have wrestled Colby. Just keep it standing up and keep picking him apart. And then he would have finished the fight in a much more dominant way, in a much more dominant look. Because then he's not finishing on the bottom, right, with Colby on top, but then he would finish, with standing in front of Colby and just chopping his fucking legs, right?
we talked about this early in early episodes too. If like remember when you were in high school or like fighting in the schoolyard with somebody,
Yeah,
and then the teachers come to separate everybody, but you're on top. Who won that
yeah,
fight?
yeah. I mean, in school, it's school. In school, it's obviously if you end up on top. Yeah, I mean,
It's
yeah,
just a funny
most
way of
likely
me
you're gonna
kind
be
of to.
considered the winner. Yeah, so
It's just a funny way for me to illustrate like the pure dominance, because that's what we're talking
yeah,
about. We're not talking basketball. We're not talking, baseball, whatever. We're talking about physical dominance of fighting, right?
yeah.
And having Colby Covington on top of Leon and Leon not able to solve that makes me question like, what if this was no time limit,
Yeah, I mean, and maybe Colby also thought that it was a school fight, right? Because at the end, he was like raising his hand and like, yeah, I won the fight. I mean, I was like, what the fuck, I mean, like
I was just trying to save
it was
face.
very clear, right? I mean, it was very clear that Leon Edwards won this fight, and it wasn't like, let's say, Makachev versus Volkanovski the first time, and it was like really, kind of 50-50, it could have gone either way. I mean, this was like pretty much dominance by Leon Edwards until the fifth round, which Colby obviously took, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but that if it was like time limit, like some of the Brazilian jiu-jitsu games, grappling fights, they have these kind of things sometimes. But then maybe if it was no time limit, Leon Edwards would approach it differently. He wouldn't like time himself for those five rounds, 5 minutes. He would be more aggressive. He would look for more better finish earlier in the fight. He wouldn't go the long run with Colby, right? So it's like
Yeah,
the what if game, and you never, it's so stupid to like what if, what if, what if? No, this is what happened, and then we try.
yeah. Obviously, I mean, it's 5 minute, it's 5 minute rounds 5 times, right? So it's they all know that you gotta execute your game plan perfectly in this time frame, and if you rush with it too much or you start off too slow, then you might get hurt, right? So
Yeah, and you also imagine, Colby Covington is a huge supporter of Donald Trump, and Donald Trump was sitting ringside with Dana White in this event, and it's just I think it was a way for him just to try to save face, but also kind of show like, hey, he didn't finish me, I was on top of him, and he was saved by the bell, you know,
yeah.
so a little bit to save face, but also a little bit, he didn't kind of dominate him. He didn't finish him. He didn't knock him out. There was no referee stoppage, So then
Yeah,
it leaves room for doubt and questioning, and you kind of like, okay.
yeah. I mean, but with Colby, you cannot expect anything else, right? Because the guy is just talking a lot of trash. It would kind of like it would kind of be like very funny, if he would just get up in the end very humble, you know, and say like, oh yeah, I lost that fight, you know, like Leon was just much better tonight. And so of course, if he wants to keep this persona up, you know, he wants to keep talking trash, then he gotta say like all the bullshit that, yeah, you know, I mean, it was like a little bit of ring rust, but I think I won that fight. And you know, like, you know,
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
just gotta make up all those excuses, right? Because
yeah.
he's this persona, what he's portraying, is kind of portraying himself as the best fighter in the world, right? So it's
Yeah.
he got to keep that up. I mean,
But he went toe to toe, and he wasn't finished or submitted or knocked out by the best welterweight in the world in toughest division in the hardest organization. So
yeah,
so
yeah.
then
I
we
mean,
still have look.
Colby is fucking
Maybe
good. Like,
maybe he's onto something, you know. Maybe he's entitled to feel that tough because guess what? He didn't get knocked out, didn't get submitted.
yeah, you know, I mean, like obviously he deserves credit. You know, he deserves a lot of credit. You know, he went really 5 rounds with the like currently greatest welterweight, right? But I mean, I just think that that's not reasonable, like how he acted, you know, like as if he won that fight. Because okay, if he won, let's say 2 rounds out of 3, then there is a close third round or something, then there can be questions, obviously. Then he, like the second Usman fight when he lost by decision, I think he acted right, you know, because it was really like 50-50, you know, or 51-49. But like in this fight, it was pretty clear like who won that fight. So not to say that Colby doesn't deserve credit, obviously he does, but to me, it's just kind of funny the way he acted like he won that fight. So
Yeah, talking about acting, you know, the cold standoff when the Paddy Pimblett and Tony Ferguson, no, sorry, when Colby Covington and Leon Edwards were introduced for the rules by the referee. You can shake hands if you want. Nobody lifted their hands, and they just went back to
yeah,
their sides and ready to fucking bang it out,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So I was
yeah.
like,
But it was
ooh.
kind of expected. I mean, you know, like after all the shit that Colby talked, you know, I mean, it was kind of expected that Leon is not gonna like fucking shake his hand as well, you know.
You know, I'm not too big of a fan of what the Masvidal when he like the shit talk that he did, and then Colby's just like beating him up, right, in the octagon. But what I liked about Masvidal when he was fighting the man with no name,
Yeah,
the Voldemort of the
the
MMA.
Voldemort of
Yeah,
MMA.
click the link below to watch one of their YouTube shorts we made about that guy. But